purpose of this video is to go over how we're going to trim the models. You can see the first part in this whole process is to articulate the models with the wax. This way we can get the correct orientation of what the patient's bite is. Obviously, you can see why it's very important to get the correct bite the first time with the patient. If the bite is incorrect, the models will articulate incorrectly. In this case, you can see that the wax doesn't extend beyond the molar, which is really important so that when you're grinding this, you don't have wax being ground on that wheel. So once we've articulated the arches, we're going to go ahead and obviously turn the motor on, turn the water on from the grinder, and also turn the faucet on so that the water runs properly. It doesn't take very much pressure to get the models ground off. You can see I'm doing this single-handedly, and that view right there shows how important it is to make sure that everything's lined up so that things seat properly when the models are on a flat table. That's about half or more than half of the whole process. That's probably the most technical part of the entire grinding process. What I'm doing now is simply grinding a little bit more because there are some minor irregularities that sometimes occur, and you'll be able to see when you're doing this. I want to make sure that the edges are flat from every single side. Now here we are starting to trim the maxillary or the mandibular side. In this case it's the maxillary side, and all you got to do is lay the flat end of the back of the model towards the distal where the molars are on that plate, and then simply push. And what we're going to do is rotate it to the mandibular side and do the same thing. There is a plate that should be used when you're grinding these models to keep your hands and fingers away from that wheel. As it happens, since I'm recording, grinding, demonstrating, and narrating, I'm not able to do that, but you should be using that plate all the time.
Everything all right?
You can put pressure on the left or put pressure on the right side to make sure that the occlusal plane is lined up with that wheel. So when you get done, everything should be parallel to the table. The plane, the occlusal plane, the back of the models, and here we are trimming the sides of the models. And all I'm really doing here is just following the plane that was already molded on and getting rid of that flash from the stone. It's also important to trim the corners. Again, I'm just using the guide plane that was already on the mold to finish off the corners. So first it's the back, then it's the sides. Do the corners. And that pretty much concludes trimming the models. Now what I'm going to do is take this knife and scrape the vestibule. You can see that there's rough edges on the vestibule. It's really important to go ahead and get those trimmed off so that the models look presentable. Again, I'm doing this single-handedly, which logically, if I had two hands, this would be a lot easier to do. So if I can do it single-handedly, anybody can do it with two hands. I'm holding the camera and trimming this all at the same time. So I'm bracing the blade against the model, and I'm using my thumb as a fulcrum. Notice how I'm holding that knife intimately with the insides of my knuckles so that you don't cut yourself. After you go ahead and finish this process, it's important to rinse the models and use a sponge to remove all of the debris that accumulated while you ground this down.
Yeah, you're right.